know how Roger is.
He's improving. He's still, I didn't tell Amy this earlier when she asked the same question. He can't taste right now, but he's improving. He's a third of the way through, and his 100 days, he's on day 34 of 100, let's put it that way. So his doctor will release him as either being healthy or not at the end of 100 days, but even then he's still to probably be somewhat careful.
Wow. So is he at home?
Yes. Yeah, he's home, which is better than being at the hospital.
Yeah. There's Blair. Should we wait a minute or two?
The only other person is Kent. I don't know, Shaylee, have we heard either way from Kent?
No, I have not heard from him.
Okay, neither have I. Hopefully he got what he needed.
The problem is we only have 50 minutes from like 5 minutes ago. So.
Oh, now we could go at 6, Shaylee. And what I was telling the group is there's a good chance we won't be very deep into the work session and probably just let everybody take a break and then start right back at 6:30. That's what I anticipate happening.
Okay, good deal. Do you want me to send out a second invite after the break or no?
I don't think so. I think we can still stay within that window.
Okay, sounds good.
And then I think the main meeting probably only take 5 or 10 minutes. So, but if you're getting nervous, if we're in the main meeting and you're getting nervous, let us know. Yeah.
Good deal.
We ready then?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Let's see, we have all the planning commissioners present except
Kent Anderson.
Ken Anderson. He's the only one not here, but everyone else welcome. Let's see, we don't have public comment. Presentation and reports, Mr. Agate.
Thank you. Well, this will be a good opportunity for me to give you an update of where we're at with things. So obviously this request today, I talked to Commissioner Jones about it. This is they're anticipating or looking at doing a redevelopment of the current property behind Bed Bath & Beyond and the property to the north of Lowe's for potential multifamily development project. I'll let the applicant explain more. You probably read the packet, but yes, the intent is for apartments. I don't know exactly the number spread at this point. They haven't given me a good layout other than some conceptual discussions just to see what kind of zoning they would even look at. So that's kind of the long and short of what you're looking at today. I don't want to get us too hemmed in on what the future will look like because we don't know. The real question will be, is the zoning what we're looking for in this property? And I can go into more detail on the actual item. So that's kind of that one. Secondarily, since we're speaking about apartments, the reason I bring up this first one is the Green Hill Apartments at Riverdale up there that are already established along 300 just east of Riverdale Road. That project, as you remember, came to the Planning Commission City Council multiple times and never happened. And then ultimately they asked for an extension and that extension timeline ended. That project lapsed. So there's a new developer that's looking at it, that's anxious to move forward with the project, or likely to move forward. And that will probably start up again another site plan amendment, subdivision amendment request. Well, it wouldn't be subdivision amendment, it'd be site plan amendment request that would go through the city process. I would anticipate you'll see that forthcoming in the next probably 6 weeks. I think we'll probably have a staff review within a couple of weeks, and then it could come to Planning Commission anytime thereafter that. So be watchful of that.
And Mike, that's the apartments like behind where they're putting in Starbucks, those apartments?
Correct. That is correct. Yep. And since we're talking about that building, why don't I give you an update on that building? That building shell is completed. Starbucks should move forward with their tenant finish of that shell shortly. Probably within the next couple of weeks, they'll go in and start doing what they want to do with that building. So that will start to come alive. The property owner does have an interested potential restaurant user in the other space for the entire space that he's pursuing. They have shown interest in using that. The question will be, will the parking adequately meet both Starbucks demand as well as this other user's demand without overtaxing the site? So Mr. Hanson's cognizant of that concern, and he's working through that. But the user will be a good user. That's all I can say right now, safely. As far as that overall project area next to Krispy Kreme, get ready for some activity there as well. I anticipate that we'll start a staff review process in August, and then it'll be forthcoming to the Planning Commission thereafter. We're talking a couple of pads and a road improvement, some other things. Now, when I say road improvement, it'll be a private drive, it won't be a city street, but that will be forthcoming. So there are definitely some projects on the horizon. Other than that, as far as what's currently going, just building permit wise, the building in the 700 West Crossing location there over by Buffalo Wild Wings, that's got a footing and foundation complete. They're working on underground plumbing. And if you haven't already heard, because the news is out there, that's being built for the use of a Zeppies on the eastern end, which will have a drive-through aisle, and then the rest of it will remain vacant for the time being. But knowing the owners, HMP Group, they will probably work aggressively to fill those spaces. The other site that is going forward is the Riverdale, what is it called? Riverdale Business Park, Phase 2, up by Bravo Arts Academy. That's coming down to the ground. It's got footing and foundations going in as we speak. The hole's been dug, and our building officials working on that. The other item, as far as construction projects, the Scandinavian Designs Furniture building is slowly progressing. There's been work going on inside. We had an inspection of that yesterday. That's over by the Zerters site. It's right next door to that, the old Babies R Us space. So that's going forward. I'm trying to think. I went over a few other things today. America First continues to do remodels, but that's what they always do. They're doing some office remodels there. I believe that's pretty much it. The only other thing to note is the 5600 South roadway discussions continue as far as financing that project. When I say that, that's the whole interchange. If you watched the city council meeting a couple of meetings ago, you would have seen a full presentation. I think it was the 1st of June meeting. So if you're curious, you want to go back and watch that, see what UDOT presented then, I'd advise you to do so. It'd be good for you as planners to know what to anticipate. But the bottom line is that interchange is going to significantly be different. And the way you exit onto Riverdale Road will be significantly different in that you will exit well south of the current Roy exit. There'll be a combined off-ramp, and they'll split, and one will continue onto Riverdale Road. So that's probably the biggest impact there. And then the configuration will change as far as how you access Freeway Park Drive. There will be an internal road that will link up to an overpass road that will go and then connect to Freeway Park Drive. So if you want to see it kind of in motion with some modeling and things, I'd advise you to go back and watch that video where they showed some of that projections and modeling on how that will operate. The final thing is Falcon Hill continues to move forward. I'm on the design review committee there with Falcon Hill. It is a state board overseeing project, so we don't even deal with it. But just so you're aware, in case you're asked, that our current Northrop Grumman building is getting near completion on site, and they're anticipating moving forward on 2 other buildings up there pretty quickly. The campus will see about 4 to 5 buildings up there for all the jobs that will eventually go up in it. It'll kind of be like a loop cul-de-sac road that will accommodate all those structures. There may be skyways that connect them and other things. It's a pretty massive effort. Along with that will lead to the relocation of the current Hill Air Force Gate that's up there. It'll be relocated further to the south as part of that. And the reason I bring that up is it does have direct relationship to what's going on with the 5600 South roadway configuration. The Falcon Hill group has some significant concerns about what UDOT's trying to accomplish, so there's some back and forth on what that will eventually look like and what it will develop into. As part of the Falcon Hill project, also the 1900 South, North in Sunset, the interchange there. That interchange is being targeted to move forward, and you'll start to see some construction set up for that mobilization the first of next year to build that new interchange access way as it connects to that. So be watchful for that. It's going to be a significant change to both the freeway and that area of the edge of Weber and Davis counties right there. So I know it's a lot of information, but there's been a lot going on in the interim since we last been on, and that's kind of the update. So there you go. One final thing, just a side note, the sell between CCA Cornwallis Group and Boyer for those properties that we dealt with and did the subdivision, that's all completed and fully in the ownership of that new group out of California, CCA, and they are obviously the applicants for tonight's meeting. So there you go.
Mike, is the UDOT thing, and I'll go look to know more, but is it a lot like when we met at oh gosh, was it last fall? And they
Strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as that. If you remember, I just want to bring it up. They've more formalized it, but there is definitely some challenges they're having with what Falcon Hill needs with all the jobs. The Falcon Hill group is still anxious, feeling like what UDOT has presented still won't accommodate the traffic needs that they're going to see with all the jobs that they're producing up there, and then the gate access. So there's still some significant back and forth on what that will eventually become. Now that part of it wasn't necessarily presented to the city council. City council got kind of more of a final presentation with some definitely minor modifications from what you installed in the fall. So you still might want to go look at it to be brought up to speed with the current layout. But I don't think that the final plan that they present to city council will ultimately be the final absolute construction plan. I think there'll be another change after the fact.
And will this happen, do you know, after they're done with what they're working on right now? Or is this all part of it as right now?
No, this is another project. Yeah, what's going on now, the widening for right now you're seeing the
HOV?
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't think of the term, the carpool HOV lane. That's what this whole project's about. And then it's also about rebuilding the bridges so that they're safe and secure with that bridge money that came out of the last presidential administration's dollars here 4 or 5 years ago. So you're seeing that in action.
Just for information too, there's equipment on the property on the subdivision that's going in on 700.
Yep.
So it looks like they're getting ready to begin that.
That's true too. Thanks for catching that. That is true. They've had their pre-construction meeting, and you'll start to see some grading and dirt movement going on there as well on 700. That's correct. And my understanding is 7 of those lots have already been pre-sold, believe it or not.
I believe it.
Yeah.
How many of them you sold, Amy?
Lots have already been pre-sold.
I haven't sold any of them yet, but I wouldn't be surprised for it to happen soon.
That's it. That's what I have, unless you have any other questions about what's going on in the community as a group.
Anybody else? Okay, consent items. Looking to approve the meeting minutes from April 28th, 2020 work session and our April 28th, 2020 regular meeting.
We approve them in the regular meeting. We just did changes here.
Thank you, Blair. Any changes you guys seen? So I think unless we have discretionary items,
I move that we, oh wait, we don't do that.
You don't need to do a motion. Do you want me just to briefly kind of review these 2 consent items in a little more detail than I did earlier?
Sure.
The consideration. Okay. So first thing to clarify, so you're aware of what's going on as far as how I set it up. These really, even though it was submitted as one application, you've got 2 very different rezone requests, and that the base zoning is different in both cases. So because the base zoning is different in both cases, you will see this track continually going forward as 2 separate items. Probably what we're going to do when we set a public hearing, even though we'll have you set a public hearing tonight, is you can go ahead and set the public hearing for both rezones, but I would advise that we make sure it's clear with how I have it set up that they are 2 separate items, and therefore we'll have 2 separate public hearings. And the reason, again, is that base zoning being different. That being the case, they're very different pieces of property as far as where they're located and how they're tied to agreements and what they are. And I've talked with Commissioner Jones a little bit earlier about this, so it may be redundant for him earlier today. But the property behind Bed Bath & Beyond has always sat vacant. It's just a planned commercial 3 property. It's never really had a lot of traction to be anything commercial. When it was that center was first established, I've seen a really old drawing of them looking at maybe putting some kind of a retail building back there that would have its like shared wall with Bed Bath & Beyond and a small walkable alleyway and some parking. Never happened. When I bring up the idea, even with Boyer before and others, about looking at developing it into something else, there's really not been a lot of interest in doing anything with it. So without saying too much more and letting the applicant present it and going through the rezone request, just think about that in the back of your mind. Across the street on the what's called the RCP zone property, where the regional detention basin is, a little bit different story in that it is part of a development agreement that was established with Boyer. I've looked through that development agreement. I don't see anything in it at current time, and I don't want to dig too deep into it because it doesn't have a lot of play with the rezone, other than for you to know as a planning commission there is a development agreement in place. But I didn't see any red flags when I looked through it prior to this meeting that would seem to think that any rezone request would be inappropriate or a violation of that development agreement. So from that perspective, take note of that. As far as the master plan, land use master plan for it, this entire area is established as high, what is it? Planned commercial high. And as we've seen with Green Hill Apartments, when I brought those kind of tests in the past to the Planning Commission, City Council, as well as if you look even in updates we've made to our general plan language, we recognize the need or the potential for high density residential development to potentially be a product within this area of the master land use plan. Now, in the general plan, when I brought it before, we had talked about potentially the parking area behind Ross and Staples being good locations for that. And I know that's not this location, but from a theory or just a philosophy perspective, we've clearly shown that we're open to the idea of a multifamily product existing adjacent to or around these commercial areas. So although this isn't at that location that we've clearly identified in our master plan, there clearly could still be a logical test or a discussion of could that same concept be possible on these properties. We just hadn't thought about it when we've talked about the general plan in the past. So think about that as we look at it. Again, this is just setting a public hearing, but I kind of wanted to set the stage initially as we do set the consent agenda and these public hearings so that you can, over the next 2 weeks, as information comes in and you start thinking about what's been written in the application, you start to maybe even take a drive over there and get a sense of what's going on. You'd be more aware of what the applicant is seeking. And I'll leave it at that. The only other final thing is that's interesting about the property on the south side of 300 West, it does have a gigantic detention basin. That is a regional detention basin that covers a lot of the properties, even that are part of the JCPenney development and over by TJ Maxx in that area. So it would be interesting to see how the developer addresses, should this rezone get approved, the development of a substructure that's large enough to meet both existing capacity needs as well as future development needs on that site. Now, I'm getting kind of ahead of where we need to be, but I at least want to bring that up so that you don't get stuck on it as far as the rezone is concerned and what would come forward with that. That's going to be more of a site planning question, but I know it may come into your minds. So the reason I bring up some of this is don't get distracted by the site planning needs and the development needs as part of a rezone request. The real question is, are we okay with the rezone request as requested for these properties at this location based on their argumentation? I think I've said more than enough for the purposes of tonight's meeting, but I think it's kind of a good primer as it's going to be on our minds probably over the next few weeks as we look at what they're trying to accomplish here. So with that, I'll leave it at that and go from there.
Okay, any discretionary, thanks Mike, any discretionary items? Okay.
So I think the best plan ahead, if there's no discretionary, is to maybe break for a couple of minutes and make sure everybody's on, maybe just a minute or two before 6:30, and we can have our main meeting.
That's perfect. We'll be back on, say, 6:25?
Yeah, that's good. 6:25, 6:28, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.